On the Wire, in association with Ladbrokes.
Very welcome along. What an amazing weekend we have, weather-wise and everything else. And it is Irish Champions Festival, brought to you by Ladbrokes here. It's On the Wire, and we have a very special guest today, Ger Lyons. Everything from the Royal Bahrain Champion Stakes will be previewed to the Goffs Vincent O'Brien National Stakes on Sunday. I think pound for pound is right up there with the best Champions weekends we've ever had. And on the show today, which you're going to hear from these guys shortly, we're going to have, as I mentioned, Ger Lyons, really strongly represented at Leopardstown on Saturday from race 1 onwards. We're going to also have Nicola McGeady from the sponsors, Mark Boylan from the Irish Field, and our very own Donn McClean, all coming up. Before all of that, it's time to hear from Nicola McGeady. Nicola, how are you?
I'm not too bad, Johnny. I think the stars are aligning for an unbelievable weekend. As you rightly said, the weather, unbelievable racing and entertainment over the 2 days. So I can't wait.
And I've asked Nicola to get us a special price and a certain horse for the Derby later on as well for 2024 if you want to wait until then. But before all of that, we do have some special offers, Nicola.
Yeah, it is all about the extra places on both days. We're paying 5 places in selected races. So just scan the QR code that will come up on the screen to take advantage of that.
Yeah, so the boring but important stuff. Do remember to gamble responsibly. It is a long weekend. It's great racing, but obviously keep in check, and also check out all of the racing on racingtv.com. And speaking of that racing, let's get to it. We're straight into it here, and delighted to have Ger Lyons in the show because he is formidably represented really in terms of the first day's racing. Certainly as formidable as you can be if you're not on the Ballydoyle sort of Coolmore juggernaut pretty much. In the first race, we'll get to shortly. Ger, how much does this weekend mean to you? And Colin Keane goes into it in good form as well. Do we have Ger? We may have a small technical problem with Ger. And whilst Ger comes in, there's only one place to start, and that is Mark Boylan from the Irish Field. It looks almost godlike there with all that lighting in the background. Mark, before we get to Ger, how much does this weekend mean to you?
Yeah, I think as Aidan O'Brien summed up at the press morning, we were down at last week, there was never an opportunity in Irish racing to previously kind of line horses up in this regard for 2 days in Ireland. So it's a centrepiece of the whole season. The timing is excellent. Hopefully the ground is going to be on the nice side as well, where we don't get kind of those freakish results that you sometimes get with soft ground. So loads to look forward to, Johnny.
Ger Lyons is back, I think. And if Ger's getting his screen together there, I think he might be indoors whilst Ger is getting his screen back. If you can hear us, Ger, what does Irish Champions Festival weekend mean to you?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's the main weekend. It's what we all aim for. It's what I aim for anyway. We've been very lucky at Leopardstown, not so much at the Curragh. We had 4 winners there one day on the Saturday. I don't know what year it was, but you tend to, with a season we're having this year, you tend to take that type of thing for granted, and you'd look forward to just having 1 winner this year.
What was that like, as you say, 4 winners in literally any race card? I was talking to Jack Kennedy last week. He's never had a 4-timer. You had 4 winners on one of the 2 biggest days in Irish racing, pretty much.
Yeah, it was fantastic, but it all happened in a blur because it was one race after the other. And listen, the last 10 years have been just bang, 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 and it's been great. And this has been a bit of a hiccup this year, so it's a bit of a reality check and brings you back down to earth. But there's nothing like horse racing to keep you grounded.
Yeah, well, hopefully it'll be off the ground after the first race, because this first race used to be basically, I suppose, a listed race masquerading as a maiden, but now it's a listed race masquerading as a listed race. The Ballylynn Studs. We're going to have a look back on, basically, for me, the key form line. I'm of the opinion that content's going to go off favourite here, but if content goes off favourite, as you'll see from the VT here from Leopardstown a couple of weeks back, Ger's runner Apricot Ice has to be seriously strongly represented. The key thing here for me, Ger, is you're taking on a horse with ample experience. She's even gone to Royal Ascot, and you managed to finish second.
Yeah, I like this filly. The minute this race was over, we sort of decided that the Ingle Bell was a target. knew she'd improve. I hoped she'd improve. I hoped it just wasn't going to be too much too soon for her. But it's, as I said to you before, it's a race that we've been very lucky in. And with Sakti going for the debutant, then we decided this was a filly for this race. And we lobbed in Serious Notions as well, because we won it before with Panama Red, who was our second string on that particular day. So it's, as I said, it started off as a maiden on Champions Weekend, this race did, and we've been, for some reason, whatever that reason is, we've been very, very lucky in it. And I wouldn't swap Apricot Ice with anything in the race. And I would hope that Serious Notions could.
Yeah. And sorry, Ger, I didn't hear you. Love hearing that. And also, on Serious Notions, you don't throw horses in just for the sake of it. So you obviously feel she can at least gain black type.
Yeah, I was disappointed with her the last day, but she's better than that. And she has form, I think, with Contenter. She has form in the race. So if she runs her first race, if she runs to the level of first race, she'll be bang there. But Apricot Ice is a filly I like. And whatever she does tomorrow, she'll improve again for it.
And just to note, Ger won this with Panama Red, as you mentioned, in 2021. Won it last year with Zarinsk, who we'll talk about later on. But because it's such a packed schedule, and we have Ger for the first half of the show, and we're going to go through the rest of the card, and we're now going to go to KPMG Champion Juvenile Stakes. Ger can kind of observe and watch Diego Velasquez win this, or he can look at Formal Display, who I think is actually a lively each-way contender. We'll stick with you, Ger. What do you make of this Khaled Abdullah-owned colt?
Well, Formal Display, if we have a good colt in the yard, and when I say a good colt, if we have a Guineas horse in the yard for next year, it's Formal Display. He's a horse that's taken his time to come to hand. He's needed every bit of time we've given him. He's not an over big horse, and a horse we like. Introduced him here in a maiden for horses who had never ran before. Known, like, my horses don't go away for racecourse gallops. This is his first day away on grass. This is his first day in amongst horses. So, and there's plenty of horses that he's running against who have been away for racecourse gallops. So the reason I do that is I know what's left in improvement in my horses. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that if there's a breeze up in front of him or whatever, we'll improve that much. I don't want to see my horse just hitting the line on his first day out, and that's been as good as he is. Now, that happens, but it won't happen with this guy. I thought long and hard about this, dropping him from maiden company straight into proper stakes racing. But there's very, very few races for these horses. He's a firm ground horse. And if I don't run him tomorrow, you're left with the ground possibly going for Beresford and things like that. So I said, you know something? It looks like the O'Briens have a hold on it apart from the Paddy Toomey and myself then. And I said, it's fast ground. Let him declare part of his education. We can bring him back, win his maiden. That's his 3 runs. And then I can look forward to him. Maybe if he's what I think he is, he'll have his 3 runs going into next year for a classic year.
Beautiful pedigree.
Yeah, I don't really look at pedigrees. They're a help, as you know, but I look at the horses first and foremost. And then when they start telling me they're okay, we get excited about the pedigree, you know. But normally over the years, I liked horses, and then you look down at their page and you go, well, that's only going to get me so far. And that's been correct, you know. But with Juddmonte, I have a huge chance.
Yeah, I love listening to you. Don't really look at pedigrees, look at the individual. It's great stuff. Let's look at the individual that is Nicola McGeady here. Nicola, tell me about the odds in this. We have a hot favourite, but there is a rotten each-way angle in the race as well.
Yeah, Diego Velasquez is certainly the odds-on favourite here at 1-2 for Ryan Moore and Aidan O'Brien to live up to his price tag. And obviously he looked very eye-catching when on his debut at the Curragh, and I think, you know, has a really big future, and that's just evident in the Derby betting, second favourite for next year at 8-1. Johnny, I know you were interested in that price with just City of Troy ahead of him in that Derby betting, and a strong performance could see a shake up there. But, you know, could be a real kind of each way feast as well. You've got Joseph, who trains his nearest rival here, Atlantic Coast, at 5-1. And one probably that has attracted a bit of each way support is Aidan's Capulet at 7-1, who of course won in his debut here at Dundalk.
Let's bring Donn McClean in. Donn, if you look at the pedigree rather of this favourite, his 2 sort of 3 parts brothers are Broome and Point Longzhill, who are up there with the best horses Australia has produced so far. This fella's by Frankly, cost about $2.5 million. What did you make of his debut?
You had to have been impressed with him, Johnny. I thought he got stronger as the race developed. He kind of came under a ride early enough in the race. but the more the race went on, the better he got, and he was no stronger anywhere than he was at the line. So you can see that was 7 furlongs. You can see him improving from stepping up to a mile. But it's a really interesting race. Atlantic Coast, we saw there beating Ger's horse. He was good the last day. He should come forward from that. And Ger's horse as well. You saw it on the VT there. The way that he went to the line, that was really impressive. He was really gritty. It was a 3-way go to the line, and he did well to get the better of the other two for the runner-up spot. And the 2 horses who finished 3rd and 4th, Queen of Thunder and Settlement, they both ran. They were only just beaten there the other night at Cork. So the form, I'd say the form of that has been enhanced by those two. Even though both of them were beaten, they were beaten by very narrow margins. So yeah, I can see that race playing a big role in the outcome of this one.
Can I bring you back in again, Ger? Is that something that you would be aware of prior to a horse running, that he or she, this fella, his attitude is going to be okay?
Oh yeah, very much. Like I started a horse the other day in Cork. For the life of me, don't know why she started odds on, but it was pure. Horse. Yeah, a beautiful filly called Foxtrot Tango, and purely on temperament. It was let's baby step her and let's introduce her quietly. And you could see the way Colin rode her. It was all about the next day. It was all about give this one as nice an introduction as you possibly can, because I knew that temperament was, suspect there, and I didn't want to just blow her head. This guy, rock solid. But we'd introduce horses all the time, and the betting's irrelevant to me, but it always amazes me when we start odds on in certain races first time out, when you see other horses with form, and because 99% of the other trainers have galloped them, breezed them, or galloped them up in Dundalk with barrier trials. We never do that. Like, you can take that as read, that they go to the races for the first time they're going to see stalls in action, racecourse action, grass, or anything like that. I just love seeing a horse improve from his first race.
Auguste Rodin won this race, Mark, last year. What do you make of it?
Yeah, big fan of Diego Velasquez, but it's not exactly original at the prices. I suppose the thing to prick my ears again, to go back to that Ballydoyle press morning, was that Aidan said he was an awful lot more impressive in his work than he was when he won. And if that's the case, I mean, it's pretty frightening. Look, he looks really, really classy. 2.4 million guineas a year, and he want to be, wouldn't he? But he looks, to me, I'm the very same as you, Johnny. I look at the Derby market for next year, and he's the one I'd be probably pointing to most. And as you can see here in this clip, it's that final furlong here where I think they just said that he was pretty green, wasn't really getting.
There's so much Frankel about this, Mark, isn't there? Is that fair to say? There's a bit of Frankel here.
Very much so, and I'm looking at, I suppose, stats on sires like who maybe our debut winner producing sires. I was looking at 2021, 2022 results coming into this year. Like, Frankel second time out is much stronger than first time out typically. And if you look at this market in particular, Atlantic Coast, you love it, Johnny. Yeah, and Atlantic Coast and Kodiak, that'd be as far as I could see on figures of Britain Ireland, more first time out winners than any other sire in those couple of years. So I think the chance for further progression, Diego, is all that. And I thought it was an each way angle there. Deep One has enough experience, I think. And I like the fact that you're getting a mile around Leopardstown here. Should be a good test to help him sort of relax. He can be a little hard on himself. But I think he has plenty of ability, Deep One. He's 10s. He might be an each way shout, but I'd be disappointed if Diego is beaten, to be quite honest.
Okay, let's get on to the next big race on the day, and it's basically non-stop at Leopardstown. And this is the Coolmore America Justify Matron Stakes. So before we get to some of the VT, it was pointed out to me yesterday that Dermot Weld hasn't been at Clonmel in years and years and years, but he was there yesterday, and I did ask him about not only the favourite, but the possible second favourite in the Matron. We may not have this footage, but if we do not, we might as well start with the man to my right, Ger Lyons, because we mentioned having won the race previously on the card with Zarinsk. Looks a hot renewal, Ger.
Oh yeah, this is a great race. I'd give anything to win the Matron. Kevin beat me a few years ago by the shortest of margins, and it's been on my agenda ever since. Started this year with this filly, hoping to win a Group 3, stepping up, thinking she'd be out of her depth, Group 2, Group 1. Sent her to France, came back a completely different filly. She's strong, she's matured, she's now won her Group 2. her Group 3, her Group 2, and here we are going into a matron with a live chance, which I would have given her 33-1 chance at the start of the season for a matron. And here she is, probably 7-1 shout. Dermot has the key to the race. Obviously, Tahir, I think, is home and hosed. If she turns up, I don't think she has to be 100% to win. I doubted that he wanted to run the two of them against each other. I'd say his hand would have been fore somewhere along the line there. I'd be gobsmacked if he wanted to take it, shoot 2 bullets at this race. Unfortunately for the rest of us, his second bullet is as good as his first bullet. So Serinsk has to improve again, but she's done nothing but improve all year. And I'm not playing her chances down, but like all year we were, well, if we get Group 2 place, we're delighted. And now it's if we get Group 1 place, we're delighted. So she's done nothing but improve all year, and she owes us nothing. But to get a Group 1 place in would be a huge season for her.
Lovely. So before we get to Nicola and the odds, I'll get to you, Donn. We don't have Dermot actually on this. We have Dermot later on the MyGear, but if you check out Racing TV's Twitter feed, I spoke to Dermot. Basically, Donn, he said that you remember Home of Songs was a hot favourite in this race last year. Now, he basically said she has come on hugely, and Dermot may think this favourite is home and hosed. I didn't get that impression from Dermot, but I might be reading it wrong, Donn.
Well, it's a big ask for Homeless Songs, Johnny. We haven't seen her since April when she was beaten by Buckaroo in a listed race, so she's going to have to improve from that. But look, as you say, last year she looked really, really good. This is the Buckaroo race here. Buckaroo's going to, it was a good run. It was her seasonal debut. It was the first run since
heavy ground.
Yes, heavy ground. Her first run since the Sun Chariot last season. She's travelled into a race well. I'd stop it there, and she looks like the most likely winner. But look, Buckaroo, he's gutsy and game in front, and it was a nice run for her first time back. Obviously there's a reason why we haven't seen her since then, and I didn't really think she was on the matron radar. It's only recently she's come onto it, isn't it? And suddenly she's strong on the market, and she's second favourite behind her stable companion. But look, I agree with Ger. Tahira, she's the one everybody has to beat. She's the Coronation Stakes winner, the Irish Guineas winner, was only just beaten in the English Guineas, so she's the right favourite. And it's probably correct that she's even money or a shade of odds on even. So just pick her up here on the near side, just making a grand into the race under Chris Hayes, and he's delivered her at the right time. And won nicely to get the better of Meditate. But she's picked up well there. And look, that was her penultimate run. She's since gone on and won at Royal Ascot. So yeah, look, she sets a high standard. I like Serinsk in her favour is back at Leopardstown. Like she's just dynamite at Leopardstown, and 7 furlongs a mile seems to be just equal to her. Seems to be as good over a mile as she is over 7 furlongs. So that's a positive. Jared, would very fast ground be a worry for you or not really?
I think so. I mean, I would say, she likes a little bit of juice in it. I'd say no extremes, but she's not a big filly, so I'm not going to use it as an excuse. Like perfect word. I'd say they're going to produce mint ground here tomorrow. I mean, back I think it was 218. We took everything out. We took everything out, and we were nearly laughed at for calling the ground what it was. It was actually bone jar. It was a horrible ground, and horses got injured that time, and they will never let that happen again. I'll be gobsmacked if it's not beautiful ground here tomorrow.
Yeah, that's interesting, and woe betide the ground staff to an extent. It's very, very warm today, but they will have they'll hopefully ensure that. Before we get to Mark, Nicola, how we get odds on this? What prices to hear? I have to say, Ger is saying Dermot mightn't have wanted to run the two of them in this. Wouldn't it be amazing if Tahira rocked up in the Champion Stakes? I think over a mile and 2. What she would add to it would be incredible. But that's by the by, Nicola. What odds for the matron?
Yeah, there's actually money coming for both of Dermot's horses. Obviously, very different prices. The star of the show is Tahira, and another odds-on favourite we have here at 5-6. As Donn rightly said, she comes here in red hot form, having won the Irish 1,000 guineas in the Coronation Stakes at Ascot. She's the star, as I said, and it's very hard to get away from her. Her closest competitor is her stablemate Homeless Song, or one of her closest competitors, being cut into 8-1 from 10-1, with just Serinsk separating them at 13-2.
Mark.
Yeah, look, I didn't come here to tip a bunch of favourites, but as far as the opening day goes, I think Tahira and Diego Velasquez is the double I'll be trying to play. Big fan of her for all the reasons previously stated. And I think if there is a bit of value each way, I thought Prosperous Voyage could be a bit overlooked. Rafe Beckett, everything he touches this season seems to turn to gold, and you're getting 25-1. And an interesting note there as well is Frankie Dettori, there's been a request for him to take over from Rob Hornby. I'm sure it'll be processed by the stewards tomorrow. I can see that being a fair bit shorter than that come the day. And look back at her record when she gets very good ground. Last year, beating Inspiral, turning her up at a very short price in the Falmouth. First time blinkers on here. Doesn't mind being handy, no harm around Leopardstown. Just think there's enough positives to take that she could be an each way play. But look, I'd be disappointed if Tahira gets beat. I think European champion 2-year-old filly last year. She's done very little wrong this year. She's top drawer.
Wait with us, because Ger is going to stay with us just to go through the end of Saturday's card. Again, he's very strongly represented the bookend of the card. But before all of that, Frankie Dettori, they couldn't get him enough money, according to Pat Healy, to come to Listowel for the second year running. But he does have the chance to get quite a nice few quid on Onesto in the Royal Bahrain Irish Champion Stakes. I'm going to start with you here, Nicola. We'll get odds on this. I was actually at a preview night with the one and only Mark Boylan last week, and people were worried this race is going to cut up. It's going to be 4 or 5 runners, yada yada. We've a French runner, we've English runners, we've last year's winner, we have Auguste Rodin, we have the second coming, we have Alflela, we have everything in it, Nicola. Very, very hard to call, tactically very hard to call, betting wise as well. But what are we on this beautiful Friday morning, Nikki?
So hard to call. So Auguste Rodin has been weak in the market in the last number of days, and King of Steel became favourite. That's changed again as of this morning. Auguste
3-1 the field.
Yeah, Auguste Rodin back into 3-1, joint favourite with King of Steel. I think the way punters have been leaning towards King of Steel, I suppose the fact that Auguste Rodin came last at all, at Ascot in the King George, and that remained in punters' minds. And but momentum has swung back in its favour. I guess having been beaten so early in the race has its positives, and we know he's bounced back before. But it's a deeper race than the front two, and we're happy to take them both on. Onesto ran really well here last year, finishing runner-up. His prep, by all accounts, should leave him right for this race, and he's shortening up all the time as well at 5-1. Of course, Frankie's on board as well. He's always going to have his fans, but there's every chance he can go one step further in this race.
As a trainer, Ger, can I ask you, you're looking from afar, I don't want to ask you about other people's children, but why does a horse with the apparent ability of Auguste Rodin have such a kind of a bipolar profile in terms of form this season?
Well, they're not machines. And I mean, when he finished last in the Guineas, I said, watch this man, he'll turn him around and he'll win a Group 1 next first time out. And he does that. He does that year in, year out. That said, I'd have a squiggle on the both of them. I mean, my money, if I was having a bet, not that I do, but if I was having a bet, it would have to go with Nashwa. She's been ultra consistent. She's tough out. Because I just think it's not the greatest renewal of the race, in my opinion. I think she's the one they have to beat.
Mark Boylan, for me, just looking at this race yesterday, I have no idea how it's going to work out in terms of tactics, because if you look at this race will be run to suit Coolmore, basically, unless somebody upsets the apple cart, which is possible. The long shot in the race, the only horse who basically can't win is Point Longsdale, which is problematic in two ways. If he can't win, he's a pacemaker who can't win. Secondly, he's not very quick, right? So 1.2 miles on what will be good to firm ground, he's probably going to struggle to go very hard. But they will not want a sluggish pace for Auguste Rodin, who, as we saw he needs to quicken off a good pace, yada yada. Maybe Luxembourg will go on. Mark, talk to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you. And I think Point Lansdale, I could see him leading. Luxembourg going to be behind him to ensure the tempo is strong at all times. The best of Luxembourg is always seen when you do get that honest end-to-end pace. Maybe in an ideal world, he'd like to be a little bit further back. You see him here last year's race. You had a couple behind him. Exactly. I think it was a Stone Age possibly cutting out the run at the moment. I could just see Luxembourg taking a more prominent position this time around. Auguste Rodin, it's kind of, to me, it's dicing with death slightly. It's kind of, you want to see, you see him in the Derby and how effective he is in the final furlong over 1.5 miles at Epsom, power and home. That's what gets him over the line ahead of King of Steel. But do you want to really bring a horse that's bombed out twice this season into the depths of it either? Like, look, maybe you have to find out one way or another, and maybe that's the best that you see of Auguste Rodin. But to be quite honest, I'd really struggle to have big confidence. What you're doing here, if you're back on Auguste Rodin, it's placing your faith in the ability of a legendary trainer to just engineer a second, resurrection of the season, basically. Like, you don't typically see horses coming back from big defeats. I was looking at this, I was trying to get a handle on over the last kind of 10 years or so, how many horses come back from being beaten kind of 10 lengths in a Group 1 and win another one the next day. And it's not done often, but I will tell you, I think of the the 17 or 18 I could find, I think Aidan has pulled off 8 of them in Britain or Ireland over the last kind of since 2010. So if there's anyone you want on your side in this scenario, it's Aidan. But I think you've just got to be you're very brave as a punter if you're following him in, and if he does, I'll take my hat off to him. But I think Ger is right on Nashua. I mean, I just did an interview with Holly Doyle this weekend for the paper, and she pointed out that she's just, if you go back to her career, to find a bad run in her life, it's very difficult. She's been so consistent. Her run last time in the Juddmonte, again, where he got a solid tempo with Mostadaf, she stood up to it really well and came home. But I actually think there's value here on Al Rifa. He's the coming force. He's the one here that, we maybe haven't got to see the very best of him yet. Joseph O'Brien would have told you at the start of this season, if I have one Group 1 horse that is going to be top level, this is it. And I thought last time in France against the arc favourite, I thought he nearly would have beat him under a different ride. I think they rode him maybe to get back on track, to get a positive run into him after disappointing at the Curragh. And I think if they were more aggressive, they could have possibly beaten Ace Impact. So if I'm taking that view, I think I've got to take him at 8 or 10s here from an each way perspective, and think that we haven't seen the best of him yet. I think getting up as well, this trip is absolutely ideal for him. A strongly run 10. He's got definite stamina on his damn side. A Galileo mare who's a half to an Ascot Gold Cup runner-up. So look, I'm excited by him, but really, Johnny, if you said there's 5 or 6 of them here that could win it, you're not going to be shocked, are you?
100%. And I still go back to Don's brother Ian when he wrote about Fantastic Light and Galileo clashing this race. I think that was 2001, maybe, give or take, around then anyway, and 20,000 at the race. We're not getting that these days, but my first renewal of this was Falbrav, High Chaparral, was it Alanshire, all these amazing horses. Don, the race has everything, but tactically, do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, it's a hell of a race, Johnny. Like, there's so many unknowns, and you're just dying to see the race happening so that you can find out the answers to all the questions. Actually, I had a look back at the Galileo Fantastic Light race again, and Ice Dancer and Give the Slip, they were the pacemakers in that race, and they were largely ignored. So, as you were saying earlier on about Pont Lonsdale, if he goes on and goes too fast in front, then it may be that he'll be ignored. But I agree with Mark. I think it was Mark said that Luxembourg will sit close enough to Pont Lonsdale. Like, that's the way it's shaping up. Anyway, Pont Lonsdale will probably go forward. Luxembourg will probably go and hunt him up. Like, he made all the running when he won the Tattersalls Gold Cup earlier in the season. So while he didn't, he kind of raced in mid-division last year when he won it. He is a horse who can go forward. We know that. And a strongly run 10 furlongs is probably his optimum as well, Luxembourg. So Luxembourg, like, he's another horse who may be under the radar. Nashua, likewise. Al Rifa, like, we don't know how good he could be. We just haven't seen the best of him yet, and it's just taken him a little while to get going this season. And I'll go throw down, like, if he were to bounce back and win it, the pace that he showed in winning the Derby and beating King of Steel, that's going to be a massive asset to bring back to 10 furlongs. I think King of Steel is pretty short for, like, he was beaten in the Derby, he was beaten in the King George. He's a very, very good horse, but yeah, he hasn't won his Group 1 yet, so. I think he's probably, of all of them, I think he's probably the one who might drift, actually, as the market develops more. But Alflela, I think Alflela is a big player. He's been supplemented to the race. He has to improve on what he's done so far. And he started off as a 6 furlong horse. He's bred for shorter trips, but he won the Group 2 race at York last time, the Skybet York Stakes, and that was a big performance. They didn't go a great pace. Ben Cohen set the pace, and Mashura set a nice steady pace to suit his own horse. And Alflela was actually last of the 5 runners on the run to the furlong mark, but he picked up really well. His closing sections are fast. He beat My Prospero, as a 121 rated horse. And I think a strongly run 10 furlongs will suit him really well. You can see Jim Crowley just allowing him ease into the race in behind and coming with the run down the outside, all going well. So I think Alflela might be a wee bit under the radar here.
Yeah, and he's going to miss the break. Probably he's relying. It's a funny thing, Ger, before we get your kind of views on the rest of your runners, Leopardstown can be a tricky track as well.
Yeah, it's not easy. They say it's the best track in Europe, one of the best tracks in Europe. I would agree to a level, but I'm a huge advocate that the track, whilst they tried a false rail here once upon a time, they didn't give it enough of a trial. And it goes back to the early days when Johnny Aiden, Pat Smullen, or the mercy on him, Dermot, and I think John Ox, they all said no, and it wasn't for changing. But every jockey I talked to, apart from, say, Chris Hayes, wants a false rail there. And a false rail there, you can ride a race, because if you're locked up with nowhere to go turning in, you can stay there and you can be a casualty. And there's been plenty of casualties there in recent times, which I think a false rail will sort out. If you were turning in there riding a proper jockey's race and you knew there was a proper false rail, properly constructed, you know that when they straighten up, they can't come off a straight line and you're going to get a run, and then the best horse would win. And for me, for a champion stakes or for any race, it's all about the best horse winning, not about race tactics or not about guys murdering each other. And I'd be a huge advocate for the track to be the perfect track, a false rail. I'd be an advocate for that.
That is fascinating stuff. We've seen changes at Dundalk and Goran work so well as well in recent years. Ger, you have 4 other runners on the card. You have Power Under Me, WJ Lee, Imaginarium, Colin, Mutasaref, Colin, and Gypsy Woman, GF Carroll, who's having an outstanding campaign, and she was good the last day. If you could briefly go through those 4 and what you contend to be your best chance on day 1.
Well, hopefully my best chance is in the first race and Zarinsk in the major. I'd give anything for Zarinsk. That would cap a bad season for me. Power Under Me and Imaginarium are both horses that need a little bit of juice because we had paid all our money and because I decided I'm going to go down to the wire with them, and this is the main day for me. I declare them. Shane will walk the track. If there's firm in the description, both Power Under Me and Imaginarium won't partake, unfortunately. If there was soft ground, Power Under Me would be a great ride for somebody in that race. What did we say we had then? Mutasarov is a lovely horse. Maybe his best days are behind him. He picked up an injury at the end of last season. He's on his way back from that. 7 furlongs is his trip, and he runs in the handicap coming back from Stakes Company. So he's a real 7 furlong specialist. As I think his best days are behind him, but he's still capable of putting in a good run. But whether he's good enough is another story. He's 10 stone for a reason. But as long as he runs well for the owner who'll be present, that's important for us. And I would like to think that the Ingleby has been very good to us. If you're putting a gun to my head, I'd say to walk away with a winner, I'd say it'd be in the Ingleby. In Dreamland, it would be Zarinsk. And then as long as they all run well, I'd be delighted.
I would never put a gun to your head, but thank you a million for coming on, and can't wait to see the weekend, and the very best of luck to you, Colin, and everyone this weekend.
Thanks, guys. Been a pleasure. See you soon.
That's
Ger
Lyons. Absolutely. This is the problem. The problem we have with this podcast is brevity has to be the soul of our wit, to quote Polonius. We just don't have time. There's so much going on. We're going to get now naps, and we're going to have to condense this. We start with you, and brevity is never the soul of your wit, Mark Boylan, but you're going to have to give us a nap on day 1 and somehow very, very briefly condense the other races into 3 words.
We'll keep it short. 4:30, Paddy Power Stakes. I think Adazzi is a cracking bet. Really, really think he is going to be tough to beat. I'm surprised Adelaide River is so short. I think he's been second on 5 of his last 6 starts. I just would like to see him go and collecting one of those. For all, he's been running very well. And William Haggis, I think he's won with 9 of his last 20 runners coming to Ireland. Only 2 of them didn't pick up prize money. Really classy horse. Has to give the weight away. That's not easy. But Adazzi, I think he could be a class apart in that Group 3 at 4:30.
Thanks a million. You'll read Mark in the Irish field this weekend. We are going to get to Sunday as well. Let's go to Nicola McGeady for her nap on day 1.
Yeah, I was quite taken with See the Boss in her debut. I thought she looked a fair price as well in the opener tomorrow.
Rocks up very quickly as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think she's in there at around 5-1. So, hopefully get a bit of bang for buck there.
Lovely pedigree. We'll save the best to last. So my nap is, I was torn between the last 2 handicaps here. I'm a little bit disappointed actually with the handicap prices of both the horses that I give as my nap. We get it on the screen here. I don't know. We're talking about something like 4 or 5-1. Comfort Zone was so eye-catching the last time he ran over this course and trip. It's not even funny. And despite his absence, he's got to be laid out for this race. The problem is, I thought he'd be a bigger price. Donn, what's your nap on day 1?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Comfort Zone again, Johnny. Nap is Alflela. I just think he's a wee bit overpriced in the Champion Stakes. And I didn't get to mention Just Beautiful in the major. I think she's overpriced as well.
Where are you the weekend? Are you working both days or either?
Leopardstown Saturday, yeah.
Beautiful. So you will hear Donn and check out Racing TV, obviously, all weekend, all the races, and more in-depth previews as well, because, as I say, we could talk here all day, but unfortunately we don't have the time. So let's move on to Sunday. So, I made a bit of a hames of it earlier on. I did speak to Dermot Wells. Let's just hear from Dermot, because he has a runner in the Moigler. He did mention here about the sponsors. Now, I was trying to read is this he's running for the sponsors or is he kind of getting excuses in? But Dermot was in great form in terms of his candour and also his horses at Clonmel. And he did speak about Red Viburnum, who for me is a fascinating Frankel filly in the Moidler. Right, so the weekend, I'll actually start, and I'm terrible. I'm not forgetting the name of your filly in the Moidler again, the Frankel filly, who I thought mad eye catching first time out. I might start with her.
Yeah, Red Viburnum. She's a nice filly. Probably a bit ambitious to go from being a maiden straight into the Moidler, but I thought she ran very well at the Curragh when she was third. It's belonged to the sponsors, obviously, and it'd be lovely if she could run a big race, and I think she will.
Has she come on from the debut? Because it almost looked like she got the penny drop late.
It did indeed. She was a little bit more green than I thought she would be on her first run. She's learned from it, and she's going to run a very nice race. Just whether she's mature enough to beat some very good fillies remains to be seen.
Yeah, Nicola, we don't have the betting for this just yet. Sort of give or take, if you're looking at, I guess, the morning line prices or what we expect to be the prices. Elang, who's another Frankel, is likely to be favourite. But as we've seen, Nicola, in previous races, there's an each-way make-up in the race and nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, I get we don't have the prices through yet, but just a general, I guess, overview. Elang and then City of York, they're both going to be odds on in the 2-year-old races. Highfield Princess and Bradsell in the Flying Five. Former will be slight favourites, and then the Irish Ledger will be tricky. It will all be about the market and what the vibes are like for Kyprios on his return. So it's going to be very interesting.
We're slightly running out of time here, but Donn, if I could get you to go through sort of your main hopes on Sunday and horses that you're looking at in terms of potential prices. I have to say, you're looking at the Moidler. We have 2 Frankel horses here, one Elang. I didn't really see an obvious excuse the last day for the fact that she won at Leopardstown is fine. She beat Vespertilio, who's obviously gone on to better things since. She beat her in a workman-like fashion. For me, she's actually making the market for the likes of Red Viburnum. Now, one thing as well, Donn, and I've said this during the week, the comments in running for Red Viburnum on her debut and the form has worked out very well. The comments in running, which is a rare thing in Ireland, or on the Racing Post website, nearest finish, too much to do. But if you look back at this, Chris Hayes pulls her out. The response just wasn't immediate, and then bang.
Yeah, no, it was a nice performance, Johnny. She stayed on really well, and Lilac Roll is a really, really well-regarded horse of Paddy Toomey's, an opera singer. The runner-up that day came out and won the Group 3 race next time by 6 lengths, so the form was working out well. And yeah, interesting that Dermot is allowing her to take her chance in a Group 1 race, having gotten beaten in a maiden. So it's a big step up for her, though. And Ylang and Vespertilio. I think Vespertilio might get a bit closer to Ylang than she did in the Silver Flash Stakes. So that's the kind of the stepping stones for juvenile fillies. Silver Flash Group 3, Debutante Group 2, Moidler Group 1, and they're the steps that Vespertilio took. She finished off her race really well at Leopardstown, and the Silver Flash got to within about a length or a length and a half of Ylang, and then went and was an impressive winner of the Debutante Stakes. Ylang skipped the Debutante, which is interesting, came on here, and at the press day that Mark was talking about there, Aidan said, look, that he just thought that was the best thing for her, to skip to the Debutante and come on here. So Ylang, you can understand why she's favourite, but I think Vespertilio, she definitely improved from the Silver Flash to the Debutante. There's every chance she'll improve again, and you love her attitude, like the way that she finishes off her race. So I think she might get a wee bit strong. You've got Porta Fortuna as well in there, of course, the Albany Stakes winner who ran the Phoenix Stakes against the boys, finished second behind Bucanero Fuerte in that. And Bucanero Fuerte, of course, who goes on to the National Stakes. And it's another one in which the top 2 in the market are closely linked.
Well, that's beautifully segued, Donn, because have a look at this. What do you make of this performance? If there is a visual sexual performance that we're going to see on video, it's City of Troy. Donn, talk to me through this. What do you make of the last furlong of this? I think words are futile tools.
Sexual or sectional, Johnny? Probably a bit of both.
Oh, I like that.
Look, this was incredible. The Superlative Stakes at Newmarket when Ryan Murray just went from here. When he met the rising ground, like he did travel well into his races, as you've seen, and it's just here where he meets the rising ground. He comes right away from his rivals and bounds into Guinea's favouritism, his breeding as well, out of Together Forever by Justify. There's nothing not to like about him, and Aidan O'Brien was waxing fairly lyrically about him the last day. So, look, he's such an exciting horse. He's won his 2 races. And that win there, and that's a Group 2 race. He's beating good juveniles in behind him to do what he did there, and to be as strong as he was going up the hill at the end. It was a serious performance. But in Bucanero Fuerte, he's meeting a Railway Stakes winner and a Phoenix Stakes winner. Like, he's a Group 1 winner. He won the Phoenix Stakes by 4 lengths, and like Bucanero Fuerte, he is stepping up in trip. You think 6 furlongs might be his trip. He is stepping up to 7, so we don't know about that. Whereas City of Troy, we know that he gets 7 and gets 7 strongly. So yeah, you can understand why he's favourite in front of him.
So, Mark, on the 2-year-old races, it's interesting. Aidan does have a Galileo run in the first race of the weekend. All these good 2-year-olds are either by Frankel Dubawi or, in this case, Justify. And I'm going to mention one of the Dubawis that this lad has taken on, City of Troy, because it may not be entirely straightforward. And I was wondering, are they going to actually declare more than one in the race? And in the end, Henry Longfellow has been declared. I'm looking at the possibility here of 16-1, maybe. Dubawi out of minding.
Yeah, hell of a pedigree. It's out of this world, really. But I don't know. Hardly going to run the two of them, Johnny. I wonder, is it safety first approach? I mean, if that was to happen, God forbid, the City of Troy over the next couple of days, and you didn't have another bullet left in the gun to fire, I mean, it probably makes sense to leave him in. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll run the two, but the vibe seemed to be last week anyway, at least, that he wasn't going to run the two against each other, and Henry Longfellow go Dewhurst. But if you did see 16s, Johnny, it's a free shot, isn't it? To take that right now, because you get your money back if he doesn't run. He's declared now. Look, I love City of Troy. I think he's going to take all the beating. I think exactly as Donn has said, I think Bucanero Fuerte looks a 6 furlong horse. He's definitely bred to have a chance to stay in this trip. Full brother beat Le Bon. I think he's run over hurdles in Saratoga now over 2 miles, but he was a golden mile winner at Goodwood. And even this fella's brother as well, Wooded, he won an Abbey, but he was capable of staying 7-2. So I just do think, though, the City of Troy, when you hear the Ballydoyle crew saying that it was hard to pull him up on debut, that he was going to hit the boards, like, there's a horse that's guaranteed to get 7. I think in those scenarios, I like to side with that. And as for the Mile, I think, as Donn said, not to be just to piggyback, and if you were to be each way minded at around 5 or 6-1, Vespertilio, I can't kick her out of the frame. I think she's improving really nicely. I love how she's been brought along. Educational the first day, get your black type the second day, and debutante winner. I think she's really, really exciting, and I think she'll put it up to Ylang Ylang.
Funny how the wheel keeps turning. Wooded, you mentioned there. I've a good mate who's gone into the pinhooking side of things, and he's just invested heavily in a son of Wooded, who is a Wootton Bassett horse. Wootton Bassett, of course, is the sire of Mark's fancy in the big race Saturday, Al Rifa, and was the sire of Al Manzor in the race as well, and that kind of brought him to prominence over here. But on the more sort of stamina side of things, Donn, we're going to have a look at Kyprios. I think we should be thrilled in the sense that this horse is back, but I find if you're talking about markets that are hard to call, Donn, this weekend, here is Kyprios in action in Ascot, in action last year. There, look at the stamina this horse has, and the beautiful attitude he has to racing. And this is actually him at the Curragh. Problem is, Donn, he hasn't been seen.
Yeah, he hasn't been seen since the Prix de Cadran last year, Johnny, which he won by 20 lengths, by the way, which is quite incredible for a flat race. But yeah, look, Hamish has given him a bit of a race there last year, as you saw, but he's not getting anywhere closer. He's got to within 3 parts of a length. That's it. He's getting nowhere closer, and the pair of them pulled nicely clear of Search for Song, who herself is a multiple winner of this race. And then for him to go on and win the Cadran like he did, like he was the outstanding stayer last year. He won the Ascot Gold Cup when, you could have argued that he got the run of the race. Then he won the Goodwood Cup, beat Stradivarius there, where he just won on merit, and then Dibley did in the latter part of the season. So it must have been frustrating for Aidan O'Brien and his team to have him sitting on the sidelines when all these good staying races are going past during the season. But it's great to have him back, and like his setback was apparently a very serious setback, like could have been career ending or even life ending. So it's great that he's back. And Aidan was saying the last day that he's just, you couldn't expect him to win this race on his debut. And he was talking about the latter part of the season, like maybe the Cadran again, or the Prix Royal Oak, or the Ascot race, the Stayers race at Ascot. So you can imagine that all those races are going to be on his radar as well, all going well on Sunday. But at the same time, like, he could be so far superior to his peers on Sunday that he doesn't have to be at his best. Or like, how close does he have to be at his best? Or how close to his best does he have to be in order to win it? Probably, he possibly has a good bit of leeway there, and there's every chance that he is going to be good enough to go and win it.
Just to mention, scan the QR code now to find out Ladbrokes specials this weekend. So there we are, 5 places as well. We're going to go to naps because we are actually running out of time, and you can mention very brief thoughts on the rest of the card if you want. We'll go to you first, Nicola, for day 2, back at the Curragh. Hopefully we've a nice day weather-wise. As we mentioned, scan the code for the Ladbrokes offers. What do you like in particular on day 2?
Yeah, just looking at the Flying 5 stakes, it's a tougher renewal this year, but I think I'm definitely going to go with Highfield Princess. She's 5-4 now. Prices are all up for Sunday, but yeah, she's ultra consistent and back to the scene of arguably her best performance when taking this race by 3 1/4 lengths last year. So Highfield Princess for me.
I'm going to go with my nap here now. Red Viburnum, as I said, I was talking to Dermot. Well, couldn't remember her name yesterday, but I've seen so much of her since. Red Viburnum, beautiful horse by Frankel, who obviously is a maiden. And Dermot said, okay, it's the Moiglair and we're running for the sponsor as well. But I don't know. I'm just not convinced the favourite is all that in terms of that run the second day, and might be a little bit overhyped. Mark Boylan, your nap at the Curragh.
We're going to take a bit of a big price shot here. I think Mr. Wagyu, I'd imagine he's going to be an each-way price anyway. £8 lower, something along that lines from what he was when he was second or third in the race last year. I think he was third. John Quinn comes over here, does well with the sprinters, and this race in particular, I think since Irish Champions Weekend was formed in 2014, there's been 9 run-ins. I think 5 of them won by British sprinters. Their record of these handicaps, you have to take it seriously, and albeit this guy isn't coming in the same sort of form as he was last year, you'd wonder whether this has been the plan with him. He won a scurry here last year too. Just think he could be a bit of a price, Mr. Wagyu, to keep that good British record going.
One word, Mark Kyprios, yes or no?
Oh, Jesus, Johnny. Yes, but I won't be backing him.
Okay, that's fair enough. That reminds me of a trainer we used to have a horse with. He said he'd win, but don't back him. Donn.
Yeah, take heart in the last race. It depends on the price.
I like it, Donn. I have to say I like it. Very, very impressive the last day.
Wasn't he? Yeah, he was. And like he got £6 for that. He only won by less than 2 lengths. He got £6. You can argue that's harsh, but he was a wee bit unlucky at the Curragh the time before that. He won his maiden at Dundalk back in March, and he's only had 4 runs. So you feel he's a horse who's coming. He could be very good, and Johnny Murtagh just seemed to be very positive about him afterwards. And Johnny Murtagh, of course, had the 1, 2, 3 in this race last year. He ran 3 horses in the race to finish first, second, and third, and he's got into the race. He's got into the race all right in the mark of 90. You think he's got the potential to be a fair bit better than a 90 rated horse. He has drawn stall 20, but it's not a massive negative. You'd prefer to be a wee bit lower, but it's not a massive negative historically in this race. So, of course, it depends on his price. I'm a bit afraid that he could be short enough now for such a competitive race. But, yeah, I think he's a really interesting horse.
Brilliant stuff. Interesting, Don said that about the draw as well. It might put some of you off over the mile and 2, but historically as well, if you look at trends and stats and all, lovely Dark Angel horse for John Murtagh, who obviously has done so well as a trainer. So we're paying 5 places on selected race at Ladbrokes this weekend. You'll see that on the screen. I can't thank Ger Lyons enough for coming on and talking about his runners and some views he has in Leopardstown. Thanks so much, Nicola. Thanks so much to Mark, and thanks so much to Donn McClean. Do gamble responsibly this weekend. It's a long weekend. It's a whole show. The fabulous show that is Irish Champions Festival is on Racing TV, live and exclusive from one race to the last.
On the Wire, in association with Ladbrokes.